Great. I think Hari, thank you for sharing those insights. It's amazing to hear someone in the mid-market enterprise segment have so much clarity on a sales-led motion that can work for startups. I come from a slightly different world. I've been in the SaaS game even before I knew what SaaS meant as an acronym. So I'll give you a bit of context around where I started and how. So about 8 years ago, there was a small little company based out of New York called Venture Pact. And so the founder said, we need to create a lead magnet, right, that works for us. And he ended up creating a calculator to calculate the cost of building a mobile app, right? And we rolled it out on the internet just to find out that we generated 18,000 leads in a 2-month time frame for the business. Yeah, that's when we realized that interactive marketing itself is a segment that can grow, that we can build into. Right? There were a lot of players in the segment, but our understanding of the space was, if we can create value for anybody in a market that's trying to articulate value of their product or offering or service or whatever it is, that whatever problem they're trying to solve for their audience or persona, there is a definite chance that an interactive marketing tool works 10x or 100x better than, let's say a gated piece of content that you create, right? Or $100 that you pay a copywriter to write a kick-ass email, right? So that's where the learning was, and even before we could create a product, I closed a small $18,000 deal in the US market for the company, and then we started building the product, right? So that's how Outgrow, the company that still exists, does a 10 million ARR comfortably and with a 50 people team. That was my introduction to SaaS. I learned everything there is to know, or everything that I know of SaaS, and building a sales and marketing engine for a software as a service, right? So I run this company called ScaleItRight, and the name itself, as it suggests, we use this name because we wanted to ensure that there is a way that you can learn how to build a company the right way, and the right way is subjective. So I'll leave it up to you guys to decide what the right way is, right? But when you see the nuanced differences of how some of these startups build their companies, right, when they're funded versus a bootstrap setup, right? You'd see very nuanced differences of how they think about customers, how they think about product, how they think about marketing, how they think about, right? So every single thing that I'm going to share is what a really good funded startup does really well, but you don't need an ounce of funding to get there or to do it yourself, even if you don't have rounds and rounds of funds that are raised, right? So I'm just going to try and share with you guys the learnings that I've seen and how to build an engine, right? I think that is something that I've picked up from some of the best founders that I've worked with, is how do you create an engine, how do you create a repeatable, consistent set of tasks that can be done heads down on a daily basis that can give you success, right? As opposed to there's a growth hack here or there's a growth hack there, or I don't have any growth hacks for you guys, right? It's more focused on what needs to be done. And from my experiences, I've noticed 80% of everything that you need to do is available to you. It can be done with no funding, no marketing expertise, no any of that, right? If you understand your product well enough, I think there's a lot that you can do yourself to bring it to a certain extent where then you can have specialists coming and do what they do best, right? So any founder that I meet, and I meet a bunch of them every single day, and every single interaction of mine with a founder starts with a single problem statement. And that is, as a founder, I know the space, I know the product that I'm building, I know the market, I know the persona, I understand the nuances of what they're looking for, right? There's a lot of nitty-gritty understanding that you have, right, of everything that you do. Right? But to translate this vision into execution frameworks, right? When I say execution frameworks, and this is just internal sort of lingo that we use, but it sort of strikes a chord, so let me know if it makes sense to you guys as well. But the idea is, if you can translate every nuance of your vision into execution frameworks, right, then you're able to articulate this value in the form of sales and marketing. Right? And you put this into an umbrella of demand generation. Right? Everything you do should essentially contribute to demand gen as an overarching umbrella. Right? Sales, marketing, customer success, your insights, what's flowing back into your engine, what the engine becomes 6 months from now, 18 months from now, 3 years from now. You're in a 0 to 1 journey, 1 to 10 journey, 10 to 100 journey, or beyond that. Right? Pretty much every step in the way is how do you translate your vision into value and put it into execution, and how does that value flow back into these engines, and then you keep tweaking it until you hit sweet spots in every step of the way, right? Essentially, one of the things that I really want founders to sort of keep asking themselves on a daily basis is why the hell you exist, right? And the idea of saying this is, I see a lot of them sort of reading a lot about everything that's happening, and getting a little too enamored by the industry, the space, the niche, the vertical, and whatnot, right? And just to burst a bubble, if you're entering the North American market, because we're talking about scaling a SaaS setup globally, if you're entering the North American market, I can assure you that the idea that you're working on, at least 100 companies are doing it right now, right? There is no question about it, and at different levels of maturity, right? Some of them already on top of their game, some of them are incumbents, some of them are setting up, some of them are competing in the same, and have the same set of features, same set of pricing, same everything, right? So one question that you really need to answer is, as a founder, I understand that this is a real problem statement that my persona is trying to solve, and I've built the best goddamn product to solve that problem, right? And if you can answer that question every day, I think you'll end up using all of those insights from the market and bake it into your strategy or execution itself, right? So have conversations with your prospects, customers, team members, let it be marketing, sales, product, anybody, right? All of them in sync, right, should have a very nuanced understanding of the problem that you're solving for, right? So answer the existential question for the product and the company every single day, right? You should have the confidence to stand up and say, I'm building because I know there is a market for it. And when I say there is a market for it, it's not that there are North Americans, it's easy to sell to them, they have credit cards and they'll put it in your payment gateway and keep paying for it every month, right? That's not the idea, right? Although I will agree that it's easier to sell in North America than it is to sell in India, right? And I can probably close more deals in the US, I can build these great relationships in the US, but I can tell you also that it's a really tough market, but it's also a fair market, right? And the idea of it being tough is that if you don't articulate value well enough, or if the value itself is not good enough, they don't care, right? It's as simple as that. Again, with Saurabh in the picture, I think the TAM is for investors is a bit of an outline, right? So the understanding is, when you create your investor pitch decks, you always start with my total addressable market is 2 billion, 5 billion, 10 billion, whatnot, right? I think total addressable market is for an investor to understand what kind of multiples are possible in a particular market or in the company that they're investing in, right? for a founder, right, what you need to be more concerned about or worried about, right, is what is the actual addressable market, right? If you look at a pie, and if a pie is 100%, right, in 100%, 95% of the market is using an existing solution or solving a problem in their own way and surviving happily today, right? They're an unaware market, right? They're not aware that they need a solution for a particular problem statement. That is not your actual addressable market at all. So if you added a TAM slide in your pitch deck, I just removed 95% of it, right? So let's talk about the 5% that you can actually address, right? So when you look at a 5% actual addressable market, right, even this 5% has a significant understanding of what their problem is. Let's assume they have an understanding of at least them considering that they have a problem and they wish to solve it, right? Now, even within the 5%, this is where competition kicks in. This is where there are large players in the market, funded players in the market. There are other companies just like you. There are big brands in the market. North America is too far away, right? So this 5% is the crowded space where you'll see everybody trying to enter this space, right? So the lead gen databases that you build, or the piece of content that you try to gate and invite people for a webinar, just understand that if you're doing it, there are at least 1,000 more companies doing it every single day, right? So they're flooded. They are flooded beyond imagination, right? The understanding is, if you can craft a way to understand, chalk out, and in real document what this 5% is, right? Now your TAM could be 2 billion, right? But your actual addressable market is, there is a spend of about 20 to 30 million in the market that I can address, articulate value, and I can really grab this portion of the pie, right? Now, when we started Outgrow, we had a wish list of accounts that we wanted to target, right? So the first 100 companies that signed up as customers, I knew them by name, right? This person from this company posted on LinkedIn that he had this particular problem, which is why I'm talking to him, right? So the top 100, the ones that are going to give you real insights, the ones that are going to give you product feedback, the ones that are patient with you while you build product, right? The ones that are going to support you and say, all right, I'll give you 3 more months of subscription till you fix this shit, right? Or, he's so concerned with support being in India that you do a great job with support and then he's okay. That hyper-personalized, rich list of audience that you create for yourself, that essentially becomes your target list out of your entire audience, right? But remember that when you try and create demand for your product, right, there's a very superficial layer that indicates that this is the whole market, right? That is not your market, right? There is a demand gen play, and then there is a demand capture play, right? Out of the 100%, like I said, the 95% that you don't have any connect with, right? You might not be able to sell the product to them today, right? But this is the audience that you should definitely invest in all of your organic channels, right? So this is an audience that might come to you for information, right? They might not buy the product, but when they want to solve the problem, right, you should show up as a thought leader, or you should show up as the person who solved the problem for them, right? I read about solving my problem here, right? So these are the guys that I trust, that when my studio needs a software, I'm going to go back to these guys and evaluate, right? So for the 95% of the market, which is your addressable market, but not necessarily your actual addressable market, right? You need to invest in educating this audience. Education is expensive. This is something that you'll hear across the board, but education is not expensive when you do it consistently, frugally, and like a bootstrap setup. No matter how much money you have in the bank, there's only so much value that you can derive from whatever you're doing. You're writing great content. You write 100 pieces of content this month, and next month you don't do anything, right? Your Google Analytics graph is going to go like this, and then boom, right? So you don't want that. How consistently can you do something over a period of time? Right? That is what defines your demand generation, right? And all of the outcomes that you can expect are 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months away, right? So in order to buffer for these time frames that it takes to really generate demand from the market, that is what you try and capture as demand, right? So there's a demand capture, which is your top 5% of your wish list. How do you target them, right? Now, there's a huge confusion between lead gen and demand gen, right? So lead gen is, I send an email, I get a response, it becomes a lead. And you can have a lot of success doing that, right? But the pipeline is going to dry up someday. If not today, 3 months from now. This is one thing that I noticed, and I work with a bunch of India-based startups that are selling in North America. Although it's global SaaS play here, I'll try and stick with North America because that's a market that I know best. I've spent some time there, I've spent some time here, and I've sort of looked at both the ecosystems as closely as I can. North America is not a market. Whenever you look at a market, don't look at it from, oh, they're paying in dollars, or they can buy with a credit card or whatever, right? It's how can you be fair to them, right, with your mindset, right? So I think there's a lot of correction in the SaaS world that you see today, where quite a few of them will launch in North America, fail, and come back to India, right? And this happens because they look at North America as a market, not a mindset. Right? So as founders, I would definitely recommend that think of North America in a manner that they're not just a geographical entity, right? You have to look at them for the mindset that they have, right? But if you're building the right thing, it does solve the problem, and you're fair, right? They will bloody well buy it. Second thing, in addition to thinking of North America as a mindset, is essentially to do with this notion of not investing in brand. Whatever small brand that you build for yourself, you could be a champion product on G2 Crowd, you're a brand, right? So when I say brand here, I'm not talking about your PR activity or who funded how much, or that all of that will sustain for not more than 20 days, right? So 20 days you get an uptake, you get brand keyword search through the roof, and then you're falling back down, right? The idea is to build a brand with your customers, is to build a brand, build social proof around who likes you and why, right? And that you blow out of proportion. Somebody writes you a great testimonial, blow that out of proportion, right? And the other thing about brand is I see a lot of startups, tech startups, that don't build great websites. Okay. I'm a sales guy, I don't understand. I've sold tech for 10 years. I can probably have a conversation with a computer vision scientist and have a deep technical conversation and make a great sale. But I'm still not a tech guy. But I can tell you that the impression that your website makes on the person landing there for the first time matters. If somebody tells you it doesn't matter, that's, for the lack of a better word, it's bullshit, right? Invest in building a great presence for yourself. North America looks at you and they want to trust you, but give them chances to trust you. And the only way that you can do that is make sure that every email that you write, no grammatical errors, health check, right? Make sure your signature looks great, have a good LinkedIn profile, right? Make sure that every single ounce of presence that you have on a digital channel is trustworthy, right? That is when they'll trust you, right? Strategy, as abused as the term is, look at strategy as how can you translate and document everything that you know into execution frameworks for each of the pieces of the puzzle, right? The entire demand gen puzzle when you move into North America as a market is going to change. You had a sales-led motion in India, it's going to change to a content-driven, marketing-led, product-led approach in North America, right? It just changes, right? And you cannot do that 6 months from now. You need to do that on day one, right? So when Hari says, I entered North America on day one, right? That is someone who's had success because he's invested in that market from day one, right? I'm not looking at North America only for the dollars, right? I'm looking at North America because that's where business is, right? So as a SaaS product, if you're building for India, great. But if you're building for the globe, you might as well make sure that you're building the right thing in the right way, right? So when I say strategy, strategy needs to be a documented piece of evidence of how well you know the space, right? It cannot be we sit in a boardroom and discuss for 30 minutes strategy ban gaya, right? It's how well you document every piece of information in a nice little collation of everything that needs to be done in 6-month time frames, 12-month time frames. I know that you guys might not have the bandwidth or the foresight to invest in a long-term plan like 18 months to 2 years or 3 years, right? But you can definitely break this down into 3 months at a time, like Hari was saying, and make sure that the strategy is visible to everybody. Strategy cannot be in the founder's head, right? So take it with a pinch of salt, but strategy cannot be in the founder's head, right? Meet a founder, if you don't know the numbers, red flag, right? Make sure you know every damn number, right? Which channel is contributing to traffic? Which channel is contributing to revenue? What is helping us close, right? How many conversations are we having, right? You need to be on top of all of the numbers from day one, right? It's not a 6 months down the line effort. Anything that you start 6 months down the line is going to take another 6 months for you to get anywhere, right? So anything you start is today, and anything you track is today. Yeah. So make sure that every channel, every effort, every campaign, every piece of strategy that you end up executing has a measurable outcome attached to it, right? And this has to be, baked into your DNA, right? So if a content writer is writing a piece of content, the content writer bloody well know how his piece of content is performing, right? I can't just write 4 pieces of content and publish it and then don't know what's happening, don't care what's happening, right? He needs to know how much traffic did it get? Did it work for our focus keyword? Did we end up being on search, right? Are we getting enough impressions? Your content writer needs to know this data, right? Otherwise he doesn't know what he's writing. He's writing for himself, not the person, right? So make sure that every micro activity, right? So we like to call it micro activity so that it's not overwhelming, right? Because when you look at it, it's like, oh, content, what am I going to do, right? But when you break it into funnel stages, when you break it into focus keywords, then a target list, then you break it into topics, then translate them into titles, right? You move them into nice little buckets, right? Then you write for each bucket, right? Then you have 4 pieces of content every month, okay, right? Write how much you can do consistently over a period of time. If you can write 20 this month and 4 next month, you should only write 4. Right? Create consistency in a manner that everything becomes predictable. 6 months from now, how many pieces are we writing? 4. 8. How much ever you can write consistently over a period of time, write only that much. How many campaigns can you run consistently for the next 6 months? Do only that much. Right? But make sure that your actual addressable market that you're targeting is getting what they're looking for, right? So that measurable outcome for every channel is everything that you'll do in execution is working or not, right? Make sure you seek help when you need to create a dashboard that you cannot create by yourself. Google Analytics is an ocean. Search Console is an ocean. Your campaign tool is an ocean. There are hundreds of things that you can find nitty-gritty details of that you're missing today, and I can assure you that you're missing today, right? Get an expert, spend a couple of dollars, create the best dashboard that you can and track, right? This is working, this is not. This is working, this is not. Everything that's working, create a list of it, double down, right? So everything in execution will only work when you double down on the things that are working for you. The idea of a playbook is from an organic standpoint, right, as a business, what do you need to do sustainably, consistently over a period of time that will work for you? I can assure you that all of the growth hacks and the dynamic ideas and event ideas and webinar plans and everything that you think of as a great idea is the last 20% of the puzzle. It's not the base, right? Your 80% is repeatable, consistent tasks that need to be done every single day. And all of these can be done every single day, right? And I'll give you just a gist of how we do it for our startups that work with us. Is we break each of these into cadences, right? Everything is a cadence, right? SEO is a cadence, right? So we do site-wide recommendations first, then we move on to page-wise recommendations, and page-wise recommendations we commit to doing a certain number of pages every week. We say we'll do, okay, you have 100 URLs that are indexed on the search engine. I will do page-wise recommendations for 4 pages every week. In 6 months, we'll cover 100, all pages optimized from a technical perspective and content perspective, right? So over a 6-month time frame, SEO is on top of the game. You have complete predictability of how your SEO cadence is going, right? And if you're doing the right thing, the graph is always moving up, right? You don't see this, right? Only your weekends should show a fall, right? Otherwise, it should consistently be growing. Right? And I can tell you for a fact that websites are set up like crap. The number of technical errors that we see on websites is ridiculous, right? Take some support in building the right thing on day one. You cannot have 4 iterations every 6 months and see how it goes. There is no how it goes. Before you hit, let's see how it goes, you'll run out of money, right? So do not have this, do not have the, and it's more of an attitude, right? Do not have the attitude of let's see how it goes, right? Let's do it right. Let's give it the best effort now, right? And then we'll see which one's working, which one's not, right? If you make an honest effort, you'll get an insight. If you make a dishonest effort, you're not going to get anything, right? If you look at our email playbook, email itself is an ocean. Is a great tool, right? I see people adding databases and sending campaigns every day, right? So that's not how email works, right? You have to create a cadence for email. Email deliverability, email warm-up, setting up the domain, right? Creating campaigns and sequences, making sure your messaging is great. How much are you personalizing? How relevant or not is it, right? How much of an audience is getting an automated sequence? How many of them are getting a personalized sequence, right? That everything that I just spoke about is just email. What tool stack are you going to use, right? Why, right? And this entire piece is just email, right? And you break cadences down for each of the channels like that. LinkedIn is a gamut of how you can do things on LinkedIn, right? Phone, SDR. So every single piece of the playbook is essentially a cadence, right? Craft a playbook for yourself and document that playbook is essentially what defines your success in a global scenario. India works differently. I didn't speak about India at all because I just wanted to sort of keep that away from your minds, right? Because India is a sales-led motion, right? India is a brand motion, but it works differently here, right? It works very differently here, right? So I focused the entire chat on how you need to think about the North America market, but I'm sure you guys will have a bunch of questions and we can dive in. Yeah. All right. Thanks. That was my time. Saurabh, you want to?